Hello guys, today we are going to solve the question velocity gap. It is medium level question. Here is a problem statement for a given question. As you can see, the problem statement is trying to say we have given the n number of developers with the productivity scores of array of I, and we need to divide them into teams with the velocity gap and the difference between the highest and lowest. The velocity gap is the highest and lowest values from the array of productivity score, and the solo developer has the velocity gap is 0, and the goal is our to find the minimum number of way to form a team such that total velocity gap across all team is not more than exceed k. So our task is to count how many ways we can divide the developers with the minimum values. So here are input formats for a given questions and constraints, and in example input and output is 3. Let's look at the code. Here we have defined the function solve. In this we have n, and n are the numbers of developers and maximum allowed total velocity gap. K is the velocity gap which is allowed, and V is the list of developer productivity score in sorted order. It is in sorted order because it is crucial for our to simplify velocity gap. Velocity gap, as we already know, it is the highest and lowest difference, and dp, and here is the array of dp of I and j and gap. In this array, I representing the number of developer considered so far from 1 to n is the input value for a size of question, j representing the currently open teams, and gap is representing the total velocity gap accumulated so far. This dp of I, j, and gap stores the number of way to form a team using the first I team having and j open teams can total velocity gaps. And here we also use the mod value for a large prime number, so we can prevent the integer overflow. And here we use 3 loops. Before that, we have to understand why we use dp of 0, I, j and gap is equal to 1, because before considering any developer's value, there are no open teams. I is equal to 0, j is equal to 0, and gap is equal to 0. There is one way to do this, which is doing nothing. Now let's iterate this I, j and gap. We are iterating the loop I from 1 to n, and j is from 0 to I, and gap loop is from 0 to k. This first I is used for iterating from developers, and j loop is used for iterating through the possible number of open teams, and the k is used for iterating through the velocity gaps. And here we checking the current value for dp of I minus 1 and j of dp and gap of dp. If the current value is equal to 0, we continue with this. This value is checking the skip, since there is no valid way to reach the state. And here is the difference value from velocity of I minus 1 and velocity of I minus 2 if I greater than 1, as written 0, which tell us how much adding how much adding this developer to an existing increase with the total velocity gap. Means this innermost loop is used for the checking the current developer v of I minus 1. It calculates the difference in productivity with the previous developer, which is v of I minus 2, and new gap value is equal to gap plus j into difference. This calculates the new total velocity gap if the current developer is added to any of the existing team open team. Meaning, if we have all the values in array and we are always checking the gap value from given gap, and we multiply difference by j, because adding the current developer to any of the open team adds the difference to each of the open teams. And let's check if condition if j greater than 0. This checking if there are already teams, we can add the ith developer to any of them. Means we can add this value in the array or not. And this if j less than n, this checking the meaning we open a new team for the ith developer. So we if the j is less than n, so uh, we open a new team for the ith developers. And in the last, j greater than 0 means checking the active team is closed or not after adding the current developer. And it is the last step for computing the values. We sum all values where all teams are closed if j is equal to 0 and total velocity gap less than equal to k. Now let's take an example of 3, 2 and 2, 4, 5, which is values. Now understand this. Now solve the example 3, 2, 2, 4, 5. N is equal to 3 and the 2 is the velocity gap, which is k. And this is the productivity score, which is we are used to sort this here. Solve the question example 3, 2, and 3 is a n value and 2 is the k, which is velocity gap, and we have given the three values 2, 4, 5. Now understand the question. First, we will get in this question is their individual difference, which is given. We can take the individual difference 0. So they are becoming the team. They become the team 1, and the second will be 2, 4, because the highest value in this is 4 and the minimum is 2. If we subtract the difference there, we will get the value is 2, which is the within the limit of the velocity gap. So this is valid team 2. And the third one will be going to be, and the third one is 4, 5, and 2, because the 4 minus 5 is equal to going to be 1, which is within a limit, and here it is also within a limit. And I forgot to mention 5 here. So their individual velocity gap will be 0, their velocity gap will be 2, and their velocity gap will be going to be 1, and their individual gap is 0. So they are also the valid team 3. That's why the total velocity gap in this example we get the 3. This is the reason. Now run the example. We have run the example. Now submit the code. We have submitted the question, and the status is accepted. Just try to remember in this question, always check the velocity gap values for every team which is coming, and this should be within the limit of the k, like this example.